I love you all's not just the title, but I love the subtitle. It's 12 conversations to keep laughing, loving, and learning with your partner. A lot of marriages are just surviving. They're getting through every 24 hours. They're going to work. They fighting through traffic. They're trying to figure out what's for dinner, trying to make sure the kids' homework is done, and then they do it again the next day and the next day after that. Why is it important for us to intentionally make room for laughing, loving, and learning with each other?
Some of the best times in relationships is when they're first new, when they're first starting out, because you're learning each other. Everything you have to tell me is new. What's your favorite color? Oh, I didn't know that. I love it so much. I also love the color blue. When's your birthday? Oh, you're a Taurus. I love Taurus. Are you bullheaded and stubborn? Oh, I love that about you. Everything is exciting and everything is new. And when you get into a relationship for long term, those things, it's mundane. I know, I literally tell Kev sometimes, we heard this on a,
Chris Rock.
Chris Rock said this, and I say it to Kev all the time. We've been together for so long. He'll tell me a story, and I'm like, "Can you please get kidnapped? I need you to tell me a new story. I've heard the story a gazillion times. If you go get kidnapped, you'll have a new adventure. You'll have come back and tell me something new. I need something different. Do not tell me the same story I've heard 3,000 times." And so I think with as you stay in a relationship, it what allows a relationship to sustain, but sometimes that can get boring is the word I'm gonna use, Pastor. Boring. That can get boring sometimes. And so you do have to be really, really intentional, even down to, we talk about this in the book, but it's so true, even down to date night. You're married for 15 years and you're like, we need date nights because we don't go out anymore. And so you go on these date nights, and then those start to become the exact same thing over and over. We're going to get dressed up. We're going to go to a steakhouse and we're going to come home, and that's going to be the end.
Maybe have sex
And
afterwards.
maybe have sex afterward.
Hopefully.
Hopefully. And I told Kevin, even now, actually, I'm trying to do this. Like, we're going to do a bunch of different things for date nights. Do something fun together again. Do something that's going to cause you to laugh. Do something that's going to cause you to learn. Do something different, or a first together. So I've literally, as an example, have been looking for improv classes. I was just actually talking to Cam, our he does everything. Uh but our tech guy here, and I was like, I want to do an improv class. I've never taken one. Kevin has never taken like a formal improv class.
I'm just already good.
Yeah. So I'm like, that would be fun. It's a first. It's something we can do together. It will force us to laugh, because I'm sure we're going to be either really, really good or really horrible. Either way, you're going to have a good time, and you're going to be learning something. Going out of your way about being intentional about putting in things that cause you to learn and laugh in your relationship is the only way it's going to sustain. And you're going to be able to shake up some of that, like the mundane of every life, the routine of every life, because um that's really a killer of romance to me. Is like, I'm just tired and I'm bored and we haven't done
This is
anything
boring.
exciting. Yeah, this is boring. And so just doing something fun again, it can take you back to the beginning years of your relationship, when literally everything was a first, when literally I'm learning about you and every story is new to me.
And to answer part of the last part, the learning thing, like, right, you have the His and Her Money podcast. You and your wife are what I would consider experts,
Mm-hmm.
right? But you're experts not because you learned a lot 10, 15 years ago. You're experts because you continually learn.
Sure.
You are probably heard about Bank of America's new mortgage program, zero down for minority borrowers. You've probably heard, you've had thoughts about crypto. You watch what happened with the market. You constantly learn about what's important to you. And that same thing applies to my wife. I must constantly learn the version of her that she is now,
Sure.
because we've been married almost 20 years. The version of her in dating's not the same as when we first got married. We first got married and didn't have kids. It's not the same as when we had one kid. Not the same as two kids. Not the same as when she had a job she liked, didn't like. When I had a job, when I got fired. Like, all these different versions of us matter, and you've kind of got to be up to date on the current version of your spouse, and therefore always learning to be successful. A lot of times we think marriages fail because people stop learning about their spouse, but your spouse doesn't stop changing
Mm.
and growing. Even your cell phone, you get your cell phone, iPhone, Android, whatever. Every once in a while, they send an update. Hey, here's some things that are changing with this, or you're getting a new one. Imagine going from having an iPhone in 2001 and not having one and then picking one back up in 2018 or 2022. You're familiar with that phone, but there's a whole bunch of stuff that's different now.
Mhm.
That's the same thing that with your marriage. You have to be constantly working with, talking to, and loving the current version of your spouse. And therefore, you have to be learning about them all the time.
Love it.
That was. Hey, Kevin, that was good, man. That was good. Let's go to church just a little bit because part of the dysfunction that showed up early on in your marriage was some misguided theology that you grew up in. So I'm curious because it's easy to get to that place, point your finger at the church, and abandon the church and say, everybody's phony, everybody's a crook, don't nobody know what they're doing. How did you all deal with the frustrations of some of the things that you were given via the church being misguided and still holding on to your faith, moving forward, and still using that to help strengthen your marriage as you all continue to move forward?
I have retroactively given a lot of the, I'm just going to say, adults in my life from my childhood a lot of forgiveness and a lot of grace. They didn't mean no harm. They also didn't know no better. And so if I can accept that I am making mistakes with my kids today, but I promise you I'm doing the very best that I can, it makes it a lot easier to offer grace to those adults who were absolutely 100% doing the best they could with the knowledge that they had. And they really didn't mean any harm. Caused harm aside, they didn't mean it. They didn't intend to cause any, trauma or harm or any of that. And if I can separate intent from impact, and if I can separate God's people from God, then I can live in a space where I can have this relationship and maintain my relationship with God and accept people as people, and people that are flawed, and people that make mistakes, and people that are deserving of forgiveness and grace because they really are doing the best that they can. And if you can negotiate all of those things and even see yourself in that, I'm the adult now. I'm not the kid. I'm the adult. I'm going to make mistakes. I would want that same grace from my children and the kids in my life. I would hope that when they're 36 and they realize, I don't know what I'm doing, I was looking at my auntie and my mom and them like they knew. They didn't know. They didn't know because I don't know. I'm trying. I really am, but I don't know. And so I am in a space where I offer a lot of grace and a lot of forgiveness that either wasn't asked for, or well, that's it. They just asked for it, but I understand I can offer it, and I can maintain my relationship with Christ without it being tainted by human experience.
I think you just brought up a good point. That's a marriage principle too. Be intentional about recognizing whether or not your spouse is doing the best that they can currently. I think sometimes the frustration of it not being the version that we want blinds the effort, even if it's minimal, even if it's progressive. Any wisdom there, because it can be by default our nature to say, you ain't X, Y, and Z, you're not doing X, Y, and Z, but we're not missing or we're not seeing what they're actually doing. Have you all come across that? How have you all fostered the ability to give grace to your spouse on the journey?
I think
That was a good
that was a good
question.
question, man. You should do a podcast. I think one thing that's helpful is understanding context, right? The context of the situation. For example, I know my wife's not a morning person. I am. So when I wake up full of glee, right? And I'm like, "Oh, good morning." And she looked at me like she want to burn my soul out with her eyes. At first I used to be like, "Dang, man, why is she tripping?" And then I realized she ain't that person in the morning, nor at night. But from like noon to 7,
No. From like noon to 2.
she's everything you want her to be. Also, I am when I get tired, it's over. Cranky baby, toddler. You got to put a baby down for a nap. I got to go night night. So understanding that, obviously she'd want me to show up better, but if she knows I'm tired, like for instance, if Melissa tends to want to hang out with friends more than I do a lot of times, and my social battery runs out before hers a lot of times, which might be surprising to people. She
So real.
knows that if we went to lunch with her homegirl and his husband, or her husband, her homegirl and her homegirl's husband, and it's supposed to be like an hour and a half lunch. It's 2:15, 2:25. I'm fading. I'm doing the best I can to keep going because I want to go to bed. So when we finished, she was like, "Thank you. I know that you were tired," because I was already tired. I know that she was like, "That ain't really like the thing you love to do." So, but she knows I was giving her the best version of me that I could give her. And I think that's part of giving the same benefit of the doubt that we give to people in life all the time, right? If you watch an athlete play and you know he hurt himself and he's still playing through, you don't expect him or her to operate at the same level as when they are not injured
Yeah.
or young.
Yeah.
LeBron James been in the league 20 years. You don't expect him to dunk like he was when he was in there in year 2. Offer your spouse the same grace when you know they had a bad day at work, they're on their period, they're
Hello.
tired, they're hungry,
Don't do my girls
whatever.
out there.
I was just talking about you. You know, that allows you more context to deal with the situation if you give them grace that, you know, this is where they are or this is who they are.
Right.
You know, sometimes, and I know I'm going over a little bit, sometimes knowing a person and how they are and accepting it is much better than wishing they were different.
Oh yeah, 100%.
You can deal with who they are. My wife knows I get tired at 9:30. I'm a lot of great
7:30.
things.
7,
But after
7:30.
9,
7.
I got to, because I'm up at 5 and working out and creating videos. I'm sure she wishes I could be different. But in some ways, I am who I am and she is who she is. And dealing with that version is much better qualifier. I'm not talking about somebody that hurts you, abuse you, anything like
Correct.
that. I'm talking about personality traits type of thing. Knowing that about her or about me just makes us easier to deal with. And therefore it makes your marriage easier to work with.